Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get started here. I just want to welcome everybody to our wonderful time of getting to hear from CCU about the athletics and financial aid. We'll be hearing from Brian Wall and Stephen Woodburn about these programs. And if you guys have any questions throughout this, feel free to drop them into the question and answer, and we will have time at the end to go through and walk through it. So I'm going to go ahead and have a prayer and then hand it over to Brian to talk about financial aid. Awesome. Okay. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this opportunity for us to be able to get to meet over Zoom. And I know in this chaotic time, it can be crazy and we'd rather be in person, but I just thank you that we still have the resources to get maybe answers to questions that we have and to get to hear about how the Lord is moving in the athletics at CCU and the way that he can provide for the students through financial aid, and however it works, Lord, it is up to you. And so I thank you for this opportunity. I pray we use this time wisely, and in Jesus' name, amen. Awesome. Okay, Brian, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you.
Thanks so much, Ashley. I appreciate that. And welcome to all of you parents. I'm sure, like us, you're getting very excited to launch your sons and daughters here for a new era in their careers. So I want to take just a few minutes that I'm the Director of Athletics here at Colorado Christian, and I can talk about financial aid, but only for a minute, and I'm going to let my colleague Steve Woodburn do that here in just a few minutes. But I do want to share tonight a little bit about what's going on in the athletics department. And so to do that, let me share my screen. And I do have a PowerPoint that will help us. Whoops, not that one. Interesting. Great. Let's. Well, I will share without the PowerPoint, or I'll just talk with you without the PowerPoint tonight. First of all, I wanted just to let you know that as part of our staff here, senior staff at CCU, we do have myself as the Director of Athletics. We have Christy Hinch, who is my Associate AD, and she handles a lot of the compliance issues, as well as she's also our Senior Women's Administrator. And so she's a great resource for all of our athletes and coaches as well. Cassidy Burke is our Director of Events and Marketing, and so her role is to help facilitate the games themselves. She also does a great job organizing facilities and practice schedules and all things having to do with logistics as well as events. So she too does a phenomenal job. Our Sports Information Director is Stephen Hinkle, and Stephen is the person who facilitates all of the streams, and I'll talk more about that in just a few minutes as far as the different events. And he also, along with Zach Carbaugh as his GA, writes stories that are covering the events and so forth. He is responsible for records and statistics and all the things that really flesh out some of the meat of what goes on in the department. And finally, we've added a part-time person to our staff this year, just about 6 months ago, and that's Phil Nelson. Phil is our women's golf coach, but he also works in athletics advancement. Phil's doing a great job and has helped us tremendously in his short tenure with us. So that's our staff from the sports side and the senior staff side. And so we are here to help the events go just as smoothly as they possibly can. In addition to that, tonight I wanted to share, which I'm sure many of you still have some questions about, what really is happening as we move forward. What has been the impact of COVID-19 as we look forward to the 2020-2021 athletic season? And I'm sure by now, many of you, especially if you have a fall sport athlete, are well aware that the NCAA has right off the bat, back in June, reduced the number of games, that maximum number of games that all teams are allowed to play, by about 20%. And so all of those seasons were going to be shrunken back due to the COVID impact. But then just last week, the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference, of which we are a member, made the decision, like so many other Division II schools, to push virtually all of our fall sports back into the spring, which will be a very interesting, will create some interesting scenarios. Part of that was driven by the fact that the NCAA had actually decided that they were not going to be able to host postseason championships in fall sports. So that really left it up to the conferences how they were going to try and play out fall sports. And so what the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference decided to do was to push those seasons to the spring in hopes that some of the circumstances are a little less severe. Some of the local and state guidelines have abated somewhat in terms of how those events can be handled. And so that's what we're going to do. And right now, the athletic directors and the presidents in the RMAC are working diligently to try and figure out what those fall sports schedules are going to look like in the spring. Now, the one exception, actually two exceptions to that decision, one would be cross country, both men's and women's. They are a fall sport and they will continue to move forward here this fall. And the reason for that is because cross country is considered more of a lower or moderate risk sport. And so we really feel like we can actually have our runners compete as a conference without necessarily putting the student athletes at risk. And that's always student athlete safety is a critical concern as we look at all of these decisions. And so, but for the sake of cross country and also men's and women's golf, since their season is split, they typically play some of their matches in the fall and some in the spring. Those will continue as relatively normal, just fewer number of matches. So both golf and cross country will go on as scheduled. The thought right now is that women's volleyball would begin their actual championship season, their game season, somewhere around the middle to the latter part of January. So I believe right now the tentative date that we're talking about is January 21st would be the first allowable date for conference matches. There would be still determining the number of matches, the schedule. It looks like potentially about a 10-week schedule for women's volleyball. And so that will be finalized here hopefully in the next week. We're hoping by the end of August at the very latest that we would have all of that solidified. Men's and women's soccer then would start their season, their championship season, their game season in the middle of March, probably around the 18th. And that's looking more to be a 5 or 6 week season, depending on how everything shakes out. So for both sports, volleyball and soccer's, there will be a conference tournament as well. And right now the thought is it would be the conference tournament would look fairly normal. And so that at this moment is what we're looking at for our fall sports. Thus far, basketball and men's and women's basketball is on track to compete as they normally would. And that would begin the weekend after Thanksgiving, weekend of Thanksgiving, I should say, is what our first current scheduled games are on tap, and we would be at home that weekend. But that could change yet as well. There's some discussion that perhaps that season will be pushed back to begin early in January. So still some uncertainty with basketball. Spring sports right now are on track to operate as normal. And so their practices would begin after Christmas as they return to school that 7th or 8th of January. Then they would start competition in February and play out their schedule as they normally would. So those are at least the thoughts at this moment. I know I did a webinar that perhaps many of you were on several weeks ago, and I think I had even fewer answers for you there. We're getting a little more direction as we move forward, but still, unfortunately, the situation is more fluid than I would like. But we're just taking it day by day, and we're just anticipating that we will be playing games here as we head into January, and of course golf and cross country very soon here in September. The hope right now is, and the expectation is that we would have some non-championship scrimmages that would be available for both our fall and our spring and winter sport teams also prior to Christmas. And so we're looking forward to that, and really looking forward to having our athletes back on campus. It seems like an eternity since they've been here. And so really looking forward to seeing many of them return here on Sunday. And then of course, beginning next week, Wednesday and through the week, through the weekend of welcome. So We're very optimistic about that, looking forward to that. Some of the other items that have emerged as a result of COVID, right now the NCAA has mandated that any institution who is competing, regardless of the season, is required to administer the COVID testing on a weekly basis. So that would mean essentially, and that testing must include a 72-hour turnaround. So for example, if a team is scheduled to play on a Friday, they would need to have administered those tests at least by the Tuesday of that week. So our thought here at CCU at this point, we're still working through the final details of which tests we're going to be using and which company we'll be doing it with, but we would anticipate typically once the games actually begin, so the week of actual competitions or scrimmages, we then would have committed that we will test our athletes, particularly those in high-risk sports. So that would mean athletes who are playing basketball or soccer or volleyball would absolutely have to be tested every week. Those athletes that are playing in moderate or low-risk sports, half of them would be tested every other week. And so there would be a little less rigor with regard to that testing, but that is basically what the NCAA has mandated. And beyond that, of course, every day, both our coaches and athletic trainers will be involved in conducting daily symptom checks. So that would mean there'll be a form that our athletes will fill out electronically, just identifying if they have had any symptoms, and if they have specific symptoms, of course, then they would be held out of practice on that particular day, and that would specifically involve a persistent cough or a fever, significant fever, and of course, in addition to that, we'll do the temperature, the thermal scans every day as well. And so any athlete that's at 100.4 or higher would immediately be removed from being able to compete at that point in time. So we are taking as many precautions, the wisest precautions that we can, and believe that we'll be able to ensure athlete safety to the largest extent possible. We will be asking our athletes, just like students on campus, to wear masks to and from their practices, but obviously not practicing or competing in masks. That makes sense. So that will not be something that is required of them, but we will ask that they honor the mask guidelines that CCU has established and in accordance with the state of Colorado. Additionally, I know there are questions about what's the circumstance surrounding fans, and quite honestly, right now, for indoor games, we would be limited to 100 fans in our event center, 100 people, I should say, in the event center, including competitors. So we're still sifting through. We obviously have some time, and we're hoping and anticipating that that may change to allow us to have a greater number of folks who are able to watch those games and competitions. That number is a little bit higher for outdoor events, I believe 175 in an outdoor stadium. So that's based on what Colorado is currently requiring. So we're still evaluating the situation with fans, and as we get closer to actual competition, we'll be finalizing those decisions. One of the final impacts that COVID has had, typically, many of you have probably heard or may have seen the video. We always like to launch the year with an athletes retreat where we've taken athletes offsite and have a speaker take some time to really seek the Lord through worship, and also have a lot of fun with various team building activities and competitions, and just being challenged through God's word, and have some time for small groups. So obviously that's been a little more difficult to facilitate this year, but we've made an adjustment, and so we've decided that we are going to have an event at All-Star Park, which is the baseball and softball complex that we have just finished redoing. We've turfed the field, and it's gone through a wonderful upgrade. And so we're actually going to gather our athletes at All-Star Park on Sunday, August 30th, and we'll do a night, we're calling it a night under the stars, night of worship, a night where teams will gather and do some small group discussions and debrief. And we'll have one of our local pastors who's very connected to us in athletics will be bringing a message to really challenge our athletes. So it'll look a little bit different, but we're excited to be able to do it and to gather as a group. So for the most part, that is the current COVID update. I have just a couple of other things that I wanted to share with you specifically as parents tonight. And I'll turn it over to Steve Woodburn, who can talk a bit more about financial aid. But one of the things that is no doubt a challenge, and myself being the parent of um, 4 children, I have 2 boys and 2 girls, and all 4 of them were college athletes. And so I've walked in the shoes that many of you are preparing to walk in. But one of the challenges as you drop your student athletes off on campus, and they begin to interact with their coaches and their teams, and you step away and are geographically distant and wondering kind of how things are going, and there may be different situations that arise inevitably in team settings. Not everybody's going to be playing equal amounts, and so there are always questions that arise about my role and my playing time and all of those things that might come up in different circumstances. And while certainly we encourage you to talk with your sons and daughters and hear from them and hear all about their experiences, and we 100% support that. If in fact there are situations that they have concerns about, or you too, we really encourage you to empower your student athletes to have those conversations with their coaches. One of the things that I have asked our coaches to do, and I think for the most part they all do a really, really good job, and that is to have periodic meetings with student athletes to really communicate the roles and the expectations that coaches have for them, and to help the student athletes sort of sort through the progress that they're making, and even have specific direction about how they can continue to grow competitively as an athlete. And so all of that to say, we want to do everything possible to really support and underscore the communication that does take place between athletes and coaches. And that's, I think I found as a parent, one of the greatest transitions, where I, particularly at the high school level and even at the club level, I think there's a lot more interaction potentially that takes place between parents and coaches. But at the collegiate level, that really does begin to change. So I think it's a healthy thing. It's a maturing thing for student athletes, but we do really encourage them to have those conversations with their coaches. I wanted to let each of you know too, invite you to follow CCU Athletics, and specifically your teams, respectively, on Instagram and Twitter. Also, the ccucougars.com website is probably your best source overall for athletics information. There'll be articles and various stories about teams and individuals and activities that are going on within the department. Additionally, at the website will be where, when you click on your team and their schedule, will be the easiest way to access the various streams. And so this year, given the uncertainty of whether or not fans will be permitted to be in venues, the streaming will be a really significant tool for you to be able to take advantage of, whether you be living here locally in Colorado or out of state. And actually, the streams are available through CCU for all home events, and every RMAC event is streamed by the home RMAC institution. Actually, those streams, the streaming quality has really improved and developed nicely over the years. So those are ways that you can follow your athletes. We want you to know too that we care deeply about the education that all of our student athletes are receiving. We want to support them in that, because that's one of the reasons, one of the advantages they are participating in Division II, as life in the balance, being able to be an excellent student, be an excellent athlete, to build great relationships. So all of those things are really something that we value at CCU as a Division II institution. So we have put some supports in place. We have what we call our access night on Sunday nights, where we require for the first semester all of our freshman athletes and those student athletes whose GPA, who are returning, whose GPA is 2.5 or below, are required to participate in a gathering on Sunday night. It's a study gathering, but also have students will have access to tutoring, and they'll have a whole support system in place. And we found this to be really helpful over the years in helping, especially our incoming freshman athletes that first semester get off to a great start. We just don't want them to get in a hole, but we really do want to provide a place where they're supported, where there's some accountability, where they have all of the tutoring available possible. In addition, just kind of as a fun activity, we put in place our CCU Athletics Academic Cup several years ago, and it's been a great challenge where each of the teams will compete based on overall CUME GPA, the growth that they make. And so we have an elaborate formula algorithm that we put together to measure that. But the winning team of the CCU Academic Cup actually receives a $2,500 award from my department, from my budget. And so they can use that, so they can put a proposal together and use it however they wish. I always love what women's golf did a couple years ago, where they were traveling at a match in California and decided they were the winners that year. And so they took their $2,500 and went to Disneyland. And it was a great payoff for them, doing a great job in the classroom. And so they got to enjoy that. And so we'll have that going as well this year. In addition, we're thankful at CCU not having class on Friday really reduces the missed class time for our athletes. So even when they're traveling, they'll be chartering, whether it's a CCU charter or a charter that we lease. But on those vehicles, they have access to Wi-Fi. They'll have opportunities when they are missing class to definitely keep up. Coaches provide time on the road when travel happens, where student athletes are all on that team required to gather at various points during the weekend and study. And so again, we want to do everything possible to support them as they progress with their education. Finally, I mentioned earlier, and I'll close with this, we were really grateful that this season we'll be able to play at All-Star Park, which we now have entered into an agreement with the Gold Crown Foundation, where we have the preferred scheduling rights over All-Star Park. And it's wonderful even this summer. We've turfed it. It looks wonderful. So both baseball and softball will be playing there. And it looks like even our soccer teams may be working out there at times as well. So very excited about that facility. We have some big plans for Alameda and Kipling that are in the works as well for some additional facilities. And so that information will be coming out here as we continue to move forward. So all of that to say, your student athletes are in great hands with their coaches. With us as a staff, we're delighted to be able to be a part of their lives and welcome them to CCU. And we're going to do everything we can to give them the best possible Division II experience we can, even in the midst of a very unique situation. So thanks so much for hearing that, for joining us tonight. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it back to Ashley.
Awesome, thank you so much. I know we had a few people join a little late, so I just want to remind you, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them down into the Q&A box, and then these wonderful gentlemen can answer those questions for you at the end. I'll go through and ask those, so please feel free to have that. And so now I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Stephen Woodburn for financial aid. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I have just a few things to talk about related to, we're just, 10 days away from school starting, and hopefully you all have been in contact with the financial aid office to discuss different things and aspects about financial aid. So I just want to touch on a couple things, give you a couple resources, and ask you to do a couple things. So the financial aid office is really kind of a one-stop shop on campus, in that they are your students if they have questions about their financial aid, about their student account, about how to access a transcript and things like that. That is the role of the financial aid office. There are 5 members in the financial aid office. This is a unique fall semester for us in that we will only have 3 team members available when school starts on the 24th. We had 2 valuable team members leave in the summer, and we're in the process of filling those positions. So if you do contact the financial aid office, please be patient. We have 3 people doing the work of 5. They are doing an awesome job, but it takes time to get everything done. So the offices is, like I said, there's 5 people in the offices, 4 financial specialists and an assistant director. You may have talked to Angel Cavazos, he is the assistant director, or you may have talked with Dina Mitchell or Sarah Van Valkenburg. Their role is to assist and guide your student through the financial aid process, through understanding their student account, through helping them understand different aspects of federal, state, if you're a resident of Colorado, and institutional financial aid. It's going to be unique for us in this semester in that we will not have an open office. As it stands right now at the beginning of the semester, or my team will only be available by phone call, email, or a Zoom meeting by setting up an appointment. If we could do it differently, we would, but this is the process we need to go through right now. I'll give you some information about how to contact the office, and your student will have that information also. We value our relationship with our parents and our students, and we want to make sure that You have everything in place, your student has everything in place, that you as a family know how the fall semester is being paid for, that we as an institution know how the fall semester is being paid for. So during the summer, hopefully your student has gotten several emails from the financial aid office, and you as parents have been getting emails through a system in our admissions office reminding you as a family of when payment arrangements are due, what resources you have to explore those options, what about signing up for signing up for FERPA, so you as a parent can have access to some of your students' information on campus, and also setting up proxy access, which is your student giving you permission to have a view only of certain things in their financial aid that you could view as a family. So I'll give you a little bit of information more about those. We do encourage all students to have the FERPA form on file. The FERPA form, the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, was enacted in 1974. And what that does is it protects your student's right as a student. With FERPA, there's only certain things that are public information that can be given to anyone who asks, like directory information, things like that. For you as a parent, having a FERPA form on file also allows you to talk with the financial aid office about your student's financial aid and about their student account primarily. FERPA in no way will give you access for anyone can discuss about your student's grades. That's just a discussion for you and for your student. But with the FERPA form, if you call and say, hey, I want to know if we have a balance on our account that needs to be paid, we can give you that information and we can walk you through on how to make the payments. Without that form, we would have to ask you to just check with your student, see what they know, and then reach out to the financial aid office. On the FERPA form, the student can set it up on a year-by-year basis. They can set it up so it starts August 24th, 2020, and would end sometime in May of 2024 when they graduate. They can give one person permission, they can give two people permission, they can give three people permission. They can also rescind that permission at any time by just simply coming into the financial aid office and saying, I want to end FERPA right access for whoever's on the form. That form can be completed electronically. I'm going to give you a website where you can go out and find that form when we get towards the end here. And the other thing is called parent proxy. And again, that's a way your student can give you access to their financial aid, to their student account information. And if they want to, they can give you access to their grade information. It's the same thing in that the student gives you as a parent access to view that information. They tell us who has access, what access you can have when we set it up. They can say it lasts for a semester, for 2 semesters, for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. They also have the right at any time to end that access for one or any individuals who have that permission. So that is a good thing to remember. Many of you have probably been on self-service and you have taken a look at your students' financial aid and their student account. That's great. That is okay as long as we are before school starts. But at 8 p.m. on August 24th, Monday, August 24th, when school starts, your student officially becomes a student at CCU, and you as a parent should no longer be accessing their self-service account. This is the purpose of proxy, is that so when they give you that access through proxy, then you can access that account. We encourage all students on Monday when school starts to go in and change their password and then to not share that one with anyone. If you as a parent are still accessing their information after school starts, it is a violation of CCU policy and a federal law. And so we would encourage you not to do that. We would encourage you to make sure you have proxy access for your student's account. On financial aid, we do monitor academics. And the reason I bring this up is students have to keep a minimum GPA in order to remain eligible for their financial aid they're receiving, whether it's federal, state, or institutional. If your student is one of our World Changer Scholarships winners for the 2020-2021 academic year, they are required to keep a 3.5 GPA. That clock starts with their fall semester. I will check their grades at the end of the fall semester. If they do not have a 3.5 term GPA, they'll get an email from me reminding them that they need to have a cumulative GPA of 3.5 by the end of the spring semester. If for some reason at the end of that spring semester they were not to have that cumulative 3.5 GPA, they would drop down either to the Distinguished Achievement Scholarship, which is $19,000 a year, or the trustee scholarship, which is $17,000 a year, they would be giving up full tuition for 4 years. I can be honest and say, I'm always going to be honest, sorry, but I can tell you that we've only had one student, and this is the 7th year we've had the program, who did not meet the GPA requirement and dropped down to that lower scholarship level. All of our students have done well academically. There is not one who has had that scholarship and has not graduated. For all the other programs that we have, we encourage our students to keep certain GPA levels based on the academic scholarship they're receiving from CCU, but we only require them to keep a 2.5 or 2.0 GPA. That is the federal minimum. That is the easiest one for us to monitor. We're not monitoring different scholarship levels and different GPAs. Excuse me. And that clock also begins starting the fall semester of their freshman year. We run reports at the end of each semester, and if they're not meeting our minimum GPA requirement, or they're not completing 66% of all credits attempted, they get an email from our office that puts them on financial aid warning. If at the end of that second semester they are still not meeting the requirements, they go on financial aid suspension, and will given the opportunity to appeal to have their financial aid reinstated for one additional semester. So you're probably wondering, why am I telling you all this? I've been in higher ed for over 30 years, and I've seen it, a number of times where a student, they find out that the first day of college is not like the last day of high school. They may have an assignment before their classes even start. It's the accelerated learning format, and that they're used to taking a subject and learning that over a whole year in most cases. Here we're doing it in 16 weeks. It's very easy for a student to slip academically if they don't get off on a good fit. If you were, I remember being in college, I had an 8 o'clock class on Monday morning. It was not my favorite thing to do, to get up to go to class at 8 o'clock on Monday. But I returned to college as an adult student, so I had a family to support, so it was important for me that I did well in school. Why I'm telling you this is because it's very easy for them to dig themselves into an academic hole. The minimum GPA requirement is a 2.0, which means basically all C's. If your student were to go into the fall semester, and let me use an example so it's easy math, let's say they got all D's in their classes, and so their GPA was a 1.0. In order to get a 2.0 in the spring semester, they would have to get all B's. Now, they're certainly capable of doing that. They were going to be put into a tutoring process where they'd get help with that, but that's putting a certain amount of pressure on them too, in that they need to make sure they're doing well in classes. So we encourage students to understand what our academic regulations are for financial aid, and we want you as parents to know that also. All the financial aid policies are available in our Student Financial Aid Handbook, which is available on our website. So if you want to write this down, all information for financial aid can be found at www.ccu.edu/finaid. You can find information on federal, on state, and on institutional financial aid programs there, as well as a lot of other information. For example, how to search for outside scholarships, what is student employment all about, what's our scripture memory scholarship all about, and find some different things like that. So that is a great resource for you as parents and also for your student. If you need to contact the financial aid office, our general email address is financialaidsupport, all one word, @ccu.edu. That is a general email box that goes into a queue. The emails are rotated through the counseling staff, and then we get back with you within 24 to 48 hours. Those are the two best things. Best way to get a hold of the office. You can also call 303-963-3230. You'll be able to leave a message and someone will get back to you within a day. Lastly, I just want to talk about payment arrangements. And excuse me for losing my voice. I've been in several meetings today. We have been in contact with your student and hopefully with you as a parent to have a discussion about what the fall semester looks like for you as a family, in terms of, we have the cost of attendance, you have the financial aid the student is eligible for, and what that remaining balance is due to the school from you as a family. We have we have sent paper statements to students after they've registered. so that you as a family would have that information. We have done multiple emails to your son or daughter about reminding them about payment arrangements, reminding them about FERPA and about proxy access. Just this week, we did electronic statements, or an email with electronic attachment to an electronic statement for all students who are registered for this fall semester. Moving forward, we do not send out any more paper statements if your student still has an account on their, or a balance on their account for the fall. We send them an email with a link where they can see their statement on self-service. If you have proxy access, you'd be able to see that information also. Our payment arrangements dates have not changed for years. They're always August 1st for the fall semester and December 1st for the spring semester. Again, like I said, hopefully you have talked with someone about in our office and you have been able to discuss with them, okay, what does this look like? What do we need to do? How do we set up a payment plan? Is there anything else that we need to do? I did run a report early this afternoon, and about 25% of our incoming students in our new freshman class have not made payment arrangements yet. We are hopeful that we're going to be able to reach out to those students one more time on Monday and engage them in a conversation Monday or Tuesday before they get to campus on Wednesday. We feel it's important to have payment arrangements in place, specifically because it does two things. Like I say, I've been in financial aid for over 30 years. Way back in the day, I would be sitting at a window and there would be a line of students, maybe 3/4 of a block long, and there would be 6 windows at the state university I was working at. And all these students were coming to talk to us about how they were going to pay for school. Not a great way for your student to start off the semester when they need to be in class on that first day. This is why we work so closely with you as a family to make sure everything is in place, so this is not a conversation we have to have with your student. We do, if it's at the end of the second week of school, if we have students where no payment arrangements are in place, we do start reaching out to them and ask them, to come contact to the office and make sure we're all on the same page with this. Just need to be aware that if a student has an outstanding balance at the end of in the fall semester and we don't have a plan on how it's going to be paid, and it comes time to register for spring classes, your student will be put on a registration hold and will not be able to register. So please check with your student if you have not heard anything with them about payment arrangements, how are we going to pay for school, and make sure that you get an opportunity to talk about that before next Wednesday. Again, I gave you a website and an email address and a phone number. Those are the best ways to contact my team. And I thank you for your time tonight, and I hope you enjoy your weekend, and I'll turn it back over to Ashlyn.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So again, if you guys need to have any questions, go ahead and start throwing them into the question and answer box, and I will definitely keep my eye on it. And then if we don't have any for a few minutes, I'll go ahead and wrap us up. Being a student at CCU, I hope you know how valuable and important the financial aid office is. They're great at communication. They're super helpful. It's definitely important that you'll allow your student to take maybe a little bit of ownership. So awesome. I have my first question. Awesome. So this one is about reviewing the prior webinars. Awesome. I will reach out to the person who is heading this up and ask her where to make sure we post these. If you do not see them at all within the next day, feel free to reach out to, I believe, Melissa Stringfellow. I will go ahead and drop her email in the box below before I close this. So I will talk to her tomorrow. If it's not up by Monday, go ahead and send an email to her and we'll just make sure that that gets there. So yes. Okay, if we don't need the federal loan for the first semester, but might need it in future semesters, should we go ahead and complete the requirements for it now? So that's gonna go ahead and go to Stephen. Whenever you're ready, feel free to answer.
Yes, that's a good thing to do. Go ahead and complete the entrance counseling session and complete the master promissory note. In self-service, your student has the option of leaving that loan in a pending status, and then if they need it either later in a semester or in a future semester, they can just go in and accept the loan. By having those two things done, then the loan is all set to go and will be ready for them when they need the funds.
Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna wait to see if we have any more questions come in. I'm gonna go ahead and text Melissa right now and see if she'll respond about those priorities. And if not, I will wrap up here in a few minutes. Awesome. So this one is there any updates on the activities for Wednesday? That actually can go towards me. I'm a member of the WOW committee. In case anyone out there doesn't know, the WOW committee is the weekend of welcome. And so far, there have not been any big changes. If you're planning on welcoming your student back, of course, the only change is the parent programming. We usually all do this in person and it was changed to online. So Thursday morning, you will be saying goodbye to your student after moving them on campus on Wednesday. If you still want to know a little bit more about what it looks like, maybe see the schedule, go to CCU's website and then just put /WOW and it will pull up the schedule. We will have signs all around campus when you arrive on Wednesday and you know, anything like that. So far the plan is to keep going and having your students and welcoming them. We're super excited. It's going to be great. And also, Melissa did just text me. She said the previous webinars will be up soon. I'm pretty sure as we end WOW, we will make sure those are all posted. Awesome. Okay, what is the community Wednesday evening going to look like? Specifically, are you talking about the call to community? Is that what I'm understanding? Go ahead and maybe type in another question about it. Awesome. Okay, yes. Call of community. Today, we just got an update about it. We will be in the Jeffco Stadium is our goal. It just got approved this morning. So that will basically be, it's like 5 minutes from CCU, you and your student. So we only ask that your student bring their parents, basically. So students will bring their parents and it will be outside in the Jeffco Stadium following the guidelines. We're super excited that we still get to have this opportunity. So it'll be nearby. We don't have the details yet because we were just approved to have it. We had to have a permit. We just got the permit. It will be happening. It's right by CCU and you'll get to see where maybe some of the athletics are. So are there any activities for parents on Wednesday? They're not. Mostly just moving in your student, getting to see the campus and enjoying them. We usually, again, have you in stuff and it just didn't work out this time. Most of the time it's move-in, which is from 9 to 6 p.m. You know, dinner is provided. You know, if your student signed in before 12, you guys will have to get lunch yourselves. But if it's after 12, we'll provide lunch. So our biggest goal is just getting the students moved in. And when you guys pull up, you will have a WOW committee member team standing there. You guys will be asked if it's okay if we touch your stuff. If not, feel free to just move your student in. If so, you will have CCU students helping move you in. If there are any more questions, feel free to ask. I'll give us until 6:45 about before I decide. Awesome. If there aren't any more questions, I'm going to go ahead and close out this session. Again, financial aid is a great resource. They have some awesome people. Your students should have been getting emails from them to be able to look in. If your student maybe isn't sure what that's looking like, have them sign into their self-service and you can go and see all of the links provided. It's really awesome. It's really helpful. And the athletics are a lot of fun. And I'm really hoping that we get to keep them open and we get to enjoy the sports in the fall. That they get to have fun, maybe training or enjoying the spring, or we'll enjoy them in the spring. And I hope that they get to train and have fun building relationships. So thank you. Have a good day. I will see you all on campus on Wednesday.